We have to temporarily interrupt operations of our YouTube channel to make you aware of something very big that's happening in the dog training world right now. Throughout this video, unfortunately, you're going to be seeing some graphic dog training content by Augusto de Oliveira. Many of you will find this triggering. I still think it's an important message. You can always just listen. For years, the dog training community has expressed major concern over the methods used by the dog daddy. Recently, these concerns against him have escalated more than they ever have before. This has been the most significant rebellion from the public against his practices. Right now, the epicenter of this event is on Instagram, and I'm bringing some of it to YouTube because I want my entire audience to understand what's happening, why we are doing what we're doing, and why we expect to see change. The main objection stems from extremely harmful training techniques. These are some of the most egregious types of dog training that we see in social media. Augusto continues to promote these methods that could very easily create a public safety and health risk. Why? Because treating fear with aggression has shown to increase the likelihood of aggressive behavior out of dogs in the long run. This is professionally irresponsible. The public has an expectation that when they engage a dog trainer, that dog trainer has done their due diligence to become competent in their craft. This situation is resulting in potential protests at every professional operation that Augusto attempts to conduct business in. We're talking about it on Instagram. It's a big deal. That's where we need you if you're interested in helping us out with this. And genuinely, my aim is to be accessible to everybody, especially Dog Daddy's audience. If you're a Dog Daddy fan, you are entitled to an explanation from us and why we are doing what we're doing. And I want to be as transparent as I possibly can. Dog Daddy fans are some of my favorite people. They love dogs, they care about making their life better and resolving behavioral problems with them. I understand when you're dealing with challenging dog problems, it can be exhausting, emotional, it can try your patience, it can feel like things aren't working until you acquire the right skill set. I get it. So I want to be here to answer absolutely any questions you might have. I'll do so to the best of my ability in the comments section. And we really want to provide clarity as to why we think the methods that he implements have no place in modern dog training. Even though we are organizing protests around Augusto de Oliveira worldwide right now, we are not at all organizing protests against his followers. His followers are our friends. We are all the same people. There's no division. When we talk to law enforcement, now different districts have different views on this, but one of the themes we get when we talk to law enforcement is that, well, we need to see things like broken vertebrae, broken bones. We need to see much more than this to call this legal dog abuse. When I ask them, well, what about psychological abuse? They're like, oh, well, we don't know anything about that. That's essentially what they say. And here's why psychological abuse and psychological trauma is it's in many ways worse than physical abuse. That is because it increases the odds that a dog is likely to bite in the future. So particularly when you're using aggressive methods with dogs who have bite histories or who are likely to bite, you can't punish aggression out of a dog. But I wish there was a quick fix. There isn't. They're not cars. It's not like, hey, put a new alternator in, boom, yank, yank, it's fixed. You guys have to understand that, even over in fact, it gets worse if you continue to implement. I really actually want to give Dog Daddy's followers, if they're in here, priority. That's because they're coming over here. A lot of them are confused as to what's going on. A lot of them think that it's just a difference of opinion in training methods. When you punish dogs with issues, you're creating a hazard for public health and safety. That could be kids in the home. That could be people on the street, the dog's primary guardian. It could be other dogs. It's well established in behavior science. What I'm telling you, and I encourage you to fact check me, is not controversial in the scientific field. And you might be wondering, well, Augusto must have lots of experience and credentials. I mean, he's like a guru, right? Believe it or not, there's not a single animal behaviorist on planet Earth that you can find that will support these methods. At the highest levels of dog behavior, and believe me, there are a lot of people who work with very dire cases. They're called veterinary behaviorists. Veterinary behaviorists work with some of the toughest cases imaginable. Unfortunately, there are not enough veterinary behaviorists to work with all these dogs with aggression issues. There's only a small number of them. But we also have dog behaviorists who are very educated as well. And the thing that you'll notice with people who have the higher education coupled with experience in this field is that literally 0% of them will advise the use of these types of aversive dog training techniques in order to punish the aggression out of them. It might feel right, but you must understand the logical fallacy that this is. If you're being intellectually honest about the topic, it doesn't address the underlying cause. There are many causes of aggression. Fear is a common one. This is what we most commonly see in Augusto de Oliveira's videos. We see fearful dogs that are being dragged, escalating fear. We call trainers like Augusto in the dog training industry yank and crank dog trainers. They use overly necessary force in order to just shut the dog down. The after shots you're looking at, I want you to pay attention to a few things. Almost without exception, you'll see heavy panting in the after fixed shot. Heavy panting like that is often a sign of psychological distress. Tails in between legs, ears pinned back, avoiding eye contact with the handler, trying to get away from him, looking back to their primary guardian for assistance. These are all signs that this is not the approach. Did you get the dog to stop the behavior in the moment? Sure, but you haven't addressed the underlying issue. It's a false argument to say that, well, this works quickly and this is a desperate situation because you haven't fixed anything. And what we have here is someone who has assured themselves that they have an education in dog behavior. However, he's not produced any credentials or any indication that he has the knowledge to be giving this advice to the public, and none is required to his benefit. He doesn't have to. That's where our laws are. That's kind of why there's a big uproar right now. This uproar towards Dog Daddy is centering from mainly the dog behavior community because we have particular knowledge of how those methods affect dogs long term because we deal with those dogs. Elected representatives don't necessarily understand that. And so the louder our voice gets to make this concept known to the public, the more likely it is that we can do things like get licensure for dog training. Dog trainers should be a licensed profession. You're working with animals. Those animals can bite, they can kill other animals, they can harm other people. Incredible responsibility of your advice, giving it to the public is required there. You've seen some disturbing videos that I posted of Augusto. We've got video of him putting dogs in crates, poking them with sticks. We have him yanking and cranking dogs to teach them come when called. He's not the only one that trains this way. I don't want to make that point. My sense is that around 30% of dog trainers actually train this way. However, he has a big audience and he's promoting these methods, and so they're growing, which is why he is the person we're focusing on right now. This is my beautiful wife, Bree. Mwah. She's our partner. She's been amazing. This is Veronica. In psychology, we accept currently, when I say we, I'm talking about the broader behavior scientific community, that all animals are governed by the same laws of learning. There's not a different set of learning laws for dogs than there are for people, or birds, or insects. They literally are all governed by the same rules of behavior. We have found that reinforcement, that management, that de-escalating problematic situations has yielded exponentially better results, and the former is problematic for the reasons that I've listed earlier. He was talking about as far as punishing, being reinforcer to you, the person. So
because you're another animal who's also learning. That was the point of me pointing out learning laws are applying to us.
Yes.
Just like all the other species.
That's true. The methods implemented by Augusto de Oliveira, known as the Dog Daddy, what he's doing is not difficult. It's very easy to swing a dog around by the neck. Generally, dog trainers look at dog training in one of a couple of ways, either a dog-centered or a human-centered way. We tend to really focus the dog's emotional well-being so that they're a well-adjusted family member and not just view them as some subservient being that needs to do everything we say and shouldn't do anything we don't say. We want dogs to feel free to express natural instincts, to do things that come natural to them in a healthy, safe way. For instance, we don't want to suppress dogs sniffing. This is something that's vital to them. We don't want to suppress their exercise. We want to make sure that they have that natural outlet. We don't want to suppress their curiosity to such a point that they shut down. We want to give them healthy outlets in order to express those things. I think all of you, especially Augusto's fans, will understand if you have a dog that you want the best for them. I know you love your dog. You're willing to pay someone $400 for a training session to help your dog. You definitely need to go someone who's qualified. This isn't meant to insult him. And I think I'm factual when I say this. True professionals in dog behavior, when they look at what Dog Daddy is doing, they view him as an act. And I'm not saying this to be disrespectful, but It's like, look at this magic trick. Oh, see this big fierce dog? Let me shut it down by yanking and cranking. Look how amazing I am.
I just hope that we can help teach people about that there's a better way, literally better way for you and your dog that will work better, that will give you a better outcome, that's not dangerous.
Well said. I think that's perfectly said. There are many resources available that center around dog behavior science.
Next to you.
Yep. I mean, so right there, that was a prime example. You saw that growl come out of Veronica. Growling is a very stigmatized behavior sometimes. We've been documenting this in our current series. She's been having a difficult time with Shade. Growling is just simply saying, I'm uncomfortable. So what did I do? Did I punish her? No. We're going to remove her from the environment for a little bit, allow her to feel more comfortable. And with Shade, I simply redirected his attention away. We don't need to be overly corrective. So that's why we want to de-escalate rather than escalate when dealing with very difficult issues like aggression. Aggressive behavior is not something that is going to be fixed in a public environment without an extensive background and understanding. It's usually very multifaceted, and it requires an assessment, and it requires us to create a tailored plan for that individual dog. It is irresponsible for a dog training professional to address particularly issues of aggression in a one-size-fits-all approach, as we see. Now, some people will say, Zach, you're a one-size-fits-all approach because you use positive reinforcement dog training. And my reply to that is that indicates a lack of understanding of what positive reinforcement training is. For example, just the other day with Shade, our puppy right here, we worked on sit, lie down, stay, and release. And we used 3 different ways in a matter of 5 minutes to teach all 4 of those skills. We use shaping, we use luring, we use capturing. These are all principles that you won't hear him mention because he doesn't know about them. He doesn't know how to articulate them. He doesn't understand what counter conditioning is. He doesn't understand what desensitization or habituation, sensitizing a dog. I can say that confidently because of how I watch him train dogs. And this is why the dog behavior community is in an uproar over these methods. Our goal isn't to make you angry. Our goal is to help. Dog Daddy posted a response recently saying, you're bullying businesses who host me. We are not bullying businesses who host Dog Daddy. We are holding them publicly accountable because we understand as a dog behavior community that these methods, we have to have an explanation as to why they thought that was okay. So the businesses could easily say, I was unaware, I'm sorry, this will not happen again. I had no idea. And I believe that we would, as a community, be like, okay. In the case of Blaine Kennels, who recently hosted him, they're a dog training facility who is responsible for educating the public in the Minnesota area. It's not about bullying, it's about informing. We're not saying they're bad dog trainers. What we're saying is you hosted someone who is very problematic. Do you stand by that? That's all we're saying. They can say yes. We can delete our reviews if we just get something, but we're not trying to take down businesses. And so that's where we are. All of this is First Amendment protected activity. This is what society does when we feel like we are not heard. Because we are in this gray area now in many ways in terms of the law, where the law wants to see broken vertebrae for abuse and they don't know how to measure psychological abuse. We're sounding the alarm because dog behavior knowledge has gotten to a place where we can now predict the future a little bit better than we used to be able to when we use certain methods. And so the dog behavior community is trying to scream at the public, at elected officials, saying there's something wrong here. This is not a public good right now. This is a public detriment. It's a public health and safety risk. We're getting more organized around protests in every city that he goes to. I read his schedule, and if any of you want to have elected representatives in those cities, reach out to me. I will be more than happy to talk to them. It's hard for me to approach absolutely every tip that you guys give me, but if you can make introductions to me, that would be a way that you could help as well. And so that's where we are. All of this is First Amendment protected activity. This is what society does when we feel like we are not heard. And dog behavior experts are not traditionally known for being hellraisers and going out there with starting problems. It's something we've dedicated our lives to, and we are just trying to make sure the public is aware of this.
I have a comment you can address.
I appreciate that.
I made a post and your fans are already attacking me. I guess you only want people who agree 100% with everything you say.
I think discourse is entirely appropriate in any conversation that you're having. And it is true. I mean, we are emotional. It's a charged topic for a lot of people. It's a very emotional topic. For example, I've been doing this nearly 20 years. I've been having this argument for nearly 20 years. And we are finally getting to a place where we're trying to help the tide turn on it. I've dealt with so many people in my personal circle who have seen him. They were like, oh yeah, look at him. He's pretty good, huh? They just don't know. And so that's what we're committed to clear up for a lot of people. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so we're trying to help you know it.
Another person says our followers are very aggressive. I feel like it's important to address because it's genuinely not. Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay. Yes, in terms of I think what you're seeing is a passionate following, not necessarily aggressive. A lot of my followers do have a lot of pent-up frustration that this continues to be allowed to go on decade after decade. They don't understand why, given the body of evidence that they are aware of, one would support this approach. And I think what a lot of us may not realize is not everyone has that background. Not everyone understands that. And so that's why they're upset, because to them, they have as much information as Newton's law of gravity to back up their position. Dog Daddy does not have that. He is not scientifically literate, and it's not meant as an insult. I, at one time, was not scientifically literate, and this is a scientific profession. Behavior falls under the sciences. And trying to use pseudoscience, I mean, he talks about being dominant, he stereotypes dogs' personalities based on breed. These are all major, major red flags.
I saw someone say something about libel.
Why? How do you suspect it's libel? Libel meaning that I'm saying something untrue in writing. I can factually tell you, and this isn't a tip for tat, but a few days ago, Augusto de Oliveira made a video in front of 2 million TikTok followers saying that I sent someone to poison his dogs.
And last week, Zach George sent people to my house to poison my dogs. Luckily, I caught it in time and was able to save my dogs.
Yeah, that would be a good example of a false statement. If I say he's using abusive dog training practices, I have video evidence to support it. I've read some of the posts that Augusto has made about me, and that's okay. He has a First Amendment right to say whatever he wants as long as it's not slander or libel, although a lot of it is slanderous and libelous, and we'll deal with that at another time. I think he accused us of sending people to leave fake reviews. We're not leaving fake reviews. If you read the reviews, they are along the lines of, you hosted a problematic dog trainer at your facility that was open to the public. Can you explain why you did that? If you're a business, there's a certain expectation that you will respond to the public because you're catering to the public. It doesn't mean you have to, but that rubs our public very wrong when you just try to brush it under the rug. You're exactly right. The reason we're having to go to these places after the fact is because Augusto won't. This should be a red flag to everyone. If you're following him and you don't realize this, if you sign up for his workshop, he won't tell you his location until the last second because he doesn't want people to organize. But he's been doing this since long before we've been calling him out. We would much rather go a week ahead of time and say, you guys are about to host someone who's very problematic and you should be aware of that. So if you choose to, that's on you, but the public also can say, hey, we don't like that you did that. The methods he's implementing are not his own. These are very traditional methods. These methods originate from the early 20th century. Here's the amazing thing. The methods we're seeing him use, Augusto, were established in a time before the term operant conditioning was even known to mankind. That's how old these are. It's just a really literally outdated way to approach dog behavior that carries with it a host of side effects that are well documented. I'm going to get water.
This has been asked a couple of times. Does the ASPCA sanction this opinion? But I have here their position statement on training aids and methods, but I'll just read you the very last final sentence of the statement. The ASPCA is opposed to any training equipment that causes a pet to experience physical discomfort or undue anxiety. They don't sanction it because it's an opinion. They sanction it because they have veterinary behaviorists, other scientific sources cited here with evidence supporting why this appears to be true.
Even though in the dog training world, using these harsh techniques is controversial and some people think they're necessary and others don't, in the broader field of psychology, ethology, neurobiology, and those broader scientific fields, it is not controversial. There's an absolute consensus among scientists that this is a counterproductive way to approach dog behavior. Not only the ASPCA, as she was talking about, but every credentialed organization on earth are against these methods. You know, I like to think that I'm a scientific thinker and a logical thinker, and you should not just have one source. Don't believe me. In fact, say I'm making it all up. I want you to confirm that if you want. I will tell you that we make, YouTube dog training videos, and we do take our fact checking very seriously. As good as I am, I'm not better than the broader scientific community, and neither is Augusto, and neither is any dog trainer. And the reluctance to acknowledge this or be even aware of it, there's a saying, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. But we have to go through the effort to know it, to even understand that we didn't know it in the first place. I don't get the impression that he understands very much about basic psychology, other than if you intimidate an animal, they'll listen. But there isn't an acknowledgement of the psychological harm that's induced. We have to call this out. We have an obligation as a profession, not only to call this out, but to call it out as loudly as we possibly can, because it is a public health and safety risk. This is trying to right something that we feel is a true wrong. Thank you for hearing us out. And if you have any other questions, leave them below. I'll be happy to interact with you in the comments.